When we roll our arms, that primary function besides power is to open and close the club face. I get a lot of comments in multiple videos asking about the rotation of the arms and the wrists in the golf swing. Understanding how your wrists need to move in the golf swing is essential to adding club head speed, controlling your curve, and hitting the ball high enough to make it stop on a green. The curvature of the golf ball is going to tell us everything we need to know about what your wrists need to do. When we roll our arms, that primary function besides power is to open and close the club face. The scientific terms for those are what we call supination, where the palm is up like you could hold a bowl of soup, or pronation, where the palm is down. If you fight a slice, you definitely probably need to feel more rolling of the wrists and the arms, or pronation and supination, to help you close the club face. If you're a hooker of the golf ball, you probably don't need to feel much of it, because if you do, the ball generally has a tendency to go to the left. That's the problem with my golf swing. If you end up with a grip that's really strong, or what I consider closed face for a right-hander turned towards my right shoulder, similar to this, that would be super strong. This is not a normal position and your brain doesn't like it. So when we put our hands on the club, you end up with a lot of rolling motion in the downswing and the follow through that helps you close the club face. So if you're a slicer of the golf ball and struggle getting your face closed to the path to actually create a draw or a hook, this isn't a bad place to start. Now, contrary, if you hook the golf ball and you struggle getting the face open to the path, starting with your hands more in the weaker position, or what I would consider an open club face position, will actually make it harder to turn the face. Not impossible, but it'll make it harder to turn the face, which will actually give you a little bit more of a fade or slice bias. So for better players, they typically fight hooks or balls that draw too much. One of the common problems I see are golfers with crisscross forearms and a club face that points towards the ground too much. Well, if I wanted to curve the ball less, we need to get this relationship in the follow through to look more like this. Well, as you see me move this, my lead arm and my trail arm actually have to rotate that direction, so they end up more side by side and they're not crisscross where my right arm is on top of the left. That's what I would go to for a straighter shot with less curve. We're going to hit a couple shots here and we're going to exaggerate some of our wrist bends just to show you what the wrist conditions look like in the backswing, the top of the backswing, impact, and the follow through. I'm going to hit my normal shot first and we're going to take a look at it. So we're going to take my normal grip. We're not going to try to manipulate anything. We're just going to hit my nice high stock draw. Ball starts right, draws left. Love that. Now, growing up, I was taught in order to not slice it that you have to crisscross the forearms. So I have a lot of rotation in my arms through impact and into the follow through. Knowing what I know now with the wrists and how the swing path works, had I known this when I was younger, I would have a lot less rotation. I currently am always working on trying to take that out of it. If I just took my grip and I strengthened it and I made that same exact golf swing, that ball ended up so far low and left, it's unreal. Club path was virtually the same. That ball ended up hooking 80 yards left of target. It only launched at 6 degrees. That's not usable. You can't play golf that way. If I do this with a weak grip and I make this same golf swing, so we're going to rotate my hands over here. We're going to rotate my right hand more on top, and I try to make my same golf swing. That ball started 5.5 degrees to the right, launched really high. That thing actually launched at 23 degrees. Typically, I launch a 7-iron around 18.5 to 19. And the ball ended up about 45 yards to the right. So depending on your grip is going to determine what your wrists do. If I decide I want to keep my grip rotated this way for a really strong grip, that means in the follow through, I have to feel like I don't rotate my arms at all in order to keep the club face from rolling over. Because if I have a super strong grip and I add any rotation at all, that ball's going a mile left. So if we go strong and we don't want this ball to end up hooking, I have to do a really good job at keeping the face pointed at the target or slightly right of the target without crisscrossing, and it looks like this. I actually got that ball to start to the right, and it doesn't have any curve to it whatsoever, maybe a tiny draw, and it still launched at 17.5, so slightly low, but I was able to manipulate it, keeping my right arm under my left as much as I can. Now, if I try to take the weak grip, in order to get the club face closed, I have to add a whole lot of roll to this. Most golfers don't time that roll early enough, and when they do, they end up at impact with the shaft leaning back, so they actually add loft to it. But when the face gets open and they start rolling, now they also have a tendency to lose their path. So when we start playing around with our wrists in the downswing, that requires a lot of practice. You're not going to swing very fast doing that right away. You build speed after you build the repetition over time. Everybody talks about releasing the club. Most people use a lot of roll power to release the club because that's what they were taught. I was taught that as a kid. But the problem is when you do that, you have a tendency to close the club face and you usually hit hooks. I typically like to see golfers, instead of excessively rolling the club horizontal to the ground, I like to see them get to impact and then in the follow through actually hinge the club upwards. The more I hinge the wrists upwards, I'm still getting the release of energy to maximize club head speed, but I'm not getting the roll where the face is pointed down to the ground like so. Fred Couples is a great example of somebody who hit the ball really, really, really far when he was playing on tour and winning the Masters. And in his follow through, his wrist rehinged to 90 degrees very, very early in his follow through. Another Masters champion played the biggest draw on tour, Zach Johnson, and his hands and arms were in a straight line at this point, and he never really let his arms bend until they were past this point, then he would let them flex. So there's more than one way to do it, but generally, who hit it further? Fred Couples or Zach Johnson? The answer is Fred Couples. That's why they nicknamed him Boom Boom. The model stack and tilt golf swing typically lines the follow through up with the arms and the wrists side by side. The face points left or slightly up, and the wrists are hinged vertically slightly, typically about 30 to 40 degrees. What that does is it keeps the face slightly close to the path, rehinges in the follow through, allowing the golfer to swing the club fast enough to hit the ball far enough, but also control the curve. If you can control those pieces, the curve and add power using your wrist, you're usually going to play pretty good golf. The wrist bends with the driver are the same as with an iron. You typically have to exaggerate a few things because the face on a driver doesn't have any offset. It sits in front of the shaft and usually plays more open. So the driver typically has more pronation and supination, or rolling in the downswing and the follow through. Usually we have more flexion and extension in the wrist and the backswing to make the face play more closed. Make sure, like this video, comment below, share it with a friend. Also, if you're not subscribed, smash that subscribe button now. Click the hype button if you can. That helps me show my videos all over the world at no added cost to you.